Time to wake up! I'll cool you off! Hannah, my mother-in-law, chortled as she doused me with a bucket full of ice water. Freezing! Has she lost her mind? Pouring cold water on someone who is sick in bed with a high fever? Unforgivable. But in the next moment, my health took a drastic turn and I was barely conscious when I was rushed to the hospital in an ambulance. As my consciousness faded in the ambulance, I vowed to myself that I would get revenge on that woman. My name is Emily. I'm 30 years old. 3 years ago, I married Raymond, a childhood friend, and we're both the same age. Raymond works for a major company that involves overseas assignments and earns a decent income. I support him as a housewife. 3 years into our marriage, Raymond still invites me out every week saying, "Emily, let's go somewhere on my day off." And we are as close as two people could be, always going on dates. I hope we can keep going out like this even as we grow old. I would get so smitten thinking about our continuous happiness. Raymond was such a kind man, but Hannah, his mother, was the opposite. "How can you not do something as simple as this? You are a disgrace of a wife if you can't even manage the household properly." She would harass me every time we met, no matter what I did. I kept wondering why she was so cruel to me. But there was one incident that seemed to explain it all. It was 3 years ago, during a family meeting. When Hannah said to me, "Don't think I'll go easy on you just because you're Raymond's wife. I'll train you hard." I appreciate it. I'll look forward to your guidance. I had replied eagerly, not realizing just how terrible the harassment would be. I rarely see Hannah, but every time there's a New Year celebration or a family gathering, the thought of meeting her makes me feel gloomy, wondering what she might say to me next. Every time I met Hannah, her harassment had been taking a toll on me mentally. I brought it up with my husband. "Can't you do something about the harassment from Hannah? It's really getting to me." He replied, "Mom used to struggle with housework back in the day, and it seems like she's still not great at it. Apparently, that's why she was bullied by her mother-in-law. The idea that a daughter-in-law should tolerate harassment from the mother-in-law and complaints about housework as a given seems to have stuck with her. I'll call her out on it when I see it. Please forgive her. She's all I have left." My husband was an only child, and his father had passed away 5 years ago, leaving Hannah as the only family he had left. I guess he must have felt sorry for Hannah, being all alone at the in-laws' house since we got married. He would often stop by her place on his way home from work to check up on her. Well, if you say so. I couldn't push for more since Hannah was the only family he had left, and I was content that he would speak to her as he had promised, but the harassment towards me continued. Then, about half a year later, Hannah was scheduled to visit our home. I cleaned frantically all morning and thought everything was ready when I let Hannah in, but she exclaimed before even sitting on the sofa, "Oh, come on, Emily, what is this? It doesn't look like you've cleaned at all." She had started wandering around the living room and spotted some dust in a corner. "I just cleaned there, though." "Are you making excuses now? Look at this dust left here. Do it properly." But as he had promised, my husband stepped in. "Mom, that's enough. Emily has been working hard cleaning since this morning." I was relieved he kept the promise he made before. I'm just stating the facts." Hannah became completely sullen after that. "Come on, Mom, don't be like that." Thanks to my husband intervening whenever Hannah said something to me, I received much less harassment than usual, and by evening, Hannah went home. "Thank you for helping me out today." Before going to bed, I thanked my husband, expressing my gratitude. Then another year passed, and one day at dinner, my husband started a serious conversation. "I'm sorry, I have to go on a business trip overseas for about 3 months starting next month. Mom's worried, and I was wondering if she could stay at our place with you just for that time." Honestly, I wasn't sure I could handle spending 3 months with Hannah. But I'm worried. What if she starts saying things to me again? I shared my genuine concerns with my husband. It was hard to believe that Hannah, who was always so spiteful, could stay calm for 3 months. "Please, I'll tell Mom to stop picking on you." After my husband pleaded with me, I reluctantly agreed to live with Hannah in our house for 3 months. A month went by, and the day before my husband was due to leave for his business trip, Hannah arrived at our house. "Emily, I'm looking forward to staying with you starting today." Hannah didn't have her usual snide tone. I guess my husband must have spoken to her quite firmly. Hannah was really well behaved that day, not saying anything to me. The next day, as I was doing housework, Hannah watched me silently but then muttered, "I just can't stand not saying anything about your housework." "What do you mean?" I was confused by her comment, and when I asked her what she meant, the once quiet Hannah changed her demeanor. "The cleaning doesn't seem thorough at all, and the laundry is so wrinkled," she complained again. "Is that so? I thought I was doing my chores properly." I had been on the receiving end of such nagging before. So I responded in kind, which seemed to hit a nerve with Hannah. "What did you say? I've been quiet until now, but I can't take it anymore. I'm going to train you properly in household duties." She burst out in anger. From the next day on, Hannah relentlessly harassed me. Even when I cooked meals, she'd say, "What's with this salty taste? Are you feeding this to my son? Unbelievable." No matter how much I cleaned, "This corner, it's not done at all. And you dare say you've cleaned?" She kept on criticizing everything I did. After a week of this, I sent a text to my husband. "Ever since you left on your trip, the harassment from Hannah has been terrible." I didn't want to worry my husband who was away on business, but I was at my wit's end, so I sent him that text. "I'm really sorry. I wish I could come back right away, but I can't. I'm always here to listen, whether it's through text or call." "I understand. Sorry to bother you while you're away. Take care." After my husband encouraged me to do so, I decided to start sharing daily updates with him about the troubles caused by Hannah. Those conversations with him became my sole source of comfort. About 2 months into this living arrangement with Hannah, I suddenly fell ill. It must have been the accumulated stress from her constant harassment that finally took its toll on my health. Oh no, I feel dizzy. I found myself struggling from the morning that day, unable to do household chores properly as my legs wobbled beneath me. This fever's through the roof. No wonder I feel so terrible. When I checked my temperature, it was a high fever like I had never experienced before. I figured I needed to rest and reluctantly asked Hannah to take over the chores for the day. I'm not feeling well today. Could you please handle the chores just for today?" I asked Hannah, who was lounging in the living room watching TV. Her response came as a shock. "What? You expect me to do your chores? A little sickness and you're already shirking your duties. What kind of wife are you when your husband is away?" "I've got a high fever. I'm too dizzy to do anything properly." I managed to whisper in a feeble voice, feeling like I could collapse at any moment. "Then go lie down. Do as you please." She snapped back with a voice filled with anger. Desperate to lie down, I hurried to the bedroom right after hearing her words. I'll take a nap. If I don't feel better, I'll go to the hospital. That was my plan, but I was jolted awake by an intense coldness. It's freezing! In a moment of confusion, I quickly realized it was Hannah's doing. Hey, what are you doing? I demanded angrily, seeing her smug smile. Emily, you said you had a fever, right? Well, how about now? Has your fever gone now? Hannah showed no remorse, provocatively suggesting that her cold treatment was helpful. The thought crossed my mind that she was truly mad to douse someone with a high fever in ice water. If it had been permissible, I would have punched her right then and there, but my deteriorating health didn't allow for such actions. With my consciousness fading and breathing labored, I was at my limit. "I'm sorry, please call an ambulance," was all I could muster in a weak voice as I dialed emergency services on my mobile phone. Upon arriving at the hospital, I was quickly seen and diagnosed with a stress-induced gastric ulcer. "You were close to needing surgery if this had been caught any later. You do have a high fever, but luckily there is no bleeding, so we'll proceed with medication treatment," I was informed. Relieved that it wasn't more serious, I felt a wave of comfort wash over me. "However, you'll need to fast for several days and receive IV therapy, so you'll need to be hospitalized for about a week." Being hospitalized was actually convenient for me. If I went home, Hannah's harassment awaited, and if I fell ill again, who knows what kind of harassment she'd come up with next. "Yes, please proceed with the hospital treatment. Going home only means being bullied by Hannah," I said to the doctor. Afterward, I wondered if I said too much, but it seemed I had vented my frustration even to the doctor about Hannah. When I moved to the hospital ward and texted my husband that I'd been admitted, he replied worriedly, "What happened? Are you okay?" I explained the situation. "Dousing someone with a fever in ice water? She's out of her mind. I can't deal with her," I texted my husband, who simply responded, "I see, sorry about that." I called Hannah at home to tell her I was hospitalized. "What about the housework during that time?" she yelled, but I ignored her and hung up. I've been patient, but I'm not so kind as to stay silent even when my life's been put at risk. I resolved to get even with Hannah for all the harassment she'd put me through. A week into my hospital stay, my symptoms settled down, and I was finally able to be discharged. Of course, Hannah never came to visit me while I was hospitalized. "I'm home now. Sorry for the inconvenience." It really was an inconvenience. I had to do all the housework because you weren't here. Hannah didn't seem one bit sorry when I returned home and told her, "Well, this situation is partly your fault, isn't it?" I snapped back, frustrated from all the trouble she'd caused me. "What? It's because you can't manage your own health. Are you trying to blame me?" Hannah retorted, but I only said, "Yes," and retreated to my room. After a while, I returned to the living room, but Hannah was not there. Considering all the complaints she had about my housekeeping, I expected perfection. However, the room was far from it. Wow, what with the wrinkled laundry, and the cleaning's hardly done. The state was worse than when I did the chores. Planning to show her the next time she complained, I took pictures with my phone as evidence. After all she said to me, this is unacceptable. I won't listen to her anymore. Resolved, I began to adopt a defiant attitude towards Hannah from that day on. If she complained about the meals I made, I'd retort, "Well, you don't have to eat it, you can't stand my cooking anyway." And I would start cleaning away even if she was still eating. If she said the cleaning wasn't done, I'd say, Then why don't you do it yourself? It looks clean enough to me. Doing more seems pointless. Who do you think you're talking to? If you are going to keep complaining, why not go back to your own house? I'm only living with you because Raymond asked me to. There were many clashes with Hannah, but as she realized I wouldn't listen, she gradually stopped meddling in my housework. 2 weeks of this life passed, and then my husband returned from a business trip abroad. Seeing him after so long, I naturally smiled. Sorry for making you go through tough times every day, Mom. Upon seeing me, he immediately apologized and called Hannah to the living room. He seemed concerned about the text that Hannah sent on the day I was hospitalized. Told by my husband to join in, it ended up being a discussion between me, my husband, and Hannah. Mom, I've heard a lot from Emily, but is it true that you poured ice water on her when she was down with a high fever? He confronted Hannah, who was seated on the sofa. What are you talking about? Hannah feigned ignorance. And I also heard that you've been bullying Emily almost every day. What about that? Hannah fell silent to my husband's inquiry, offering no answer. Speak up. I can't understand if you stay silent. What on earth have you done to my dear wife? My husband yelled at Hannah with a rage I'd never heard before. I wouldn't do such a thing. I just accidentally spilled some ice water on her while trying to wipe her down. As for the household chores, I was just trying to help Emily get better at them. Hannah stammered out an excuse, clearly in a bind. Just an accident, huh? I was soaked from head to toe. That doesn't just happen by chance, does it? And because of you, I ended up in the hospital, you know. I retorted after hearing Hannah insist it was an accident, even though she had intentionally doused me with ice water. Plus, being bullied by you every single day made housework take even longer. It was truly stressful. I laid it on thicker, letting them know how the daily harassment had turned chores into a source of stress. It's because I taught you and trained you every day that you got better at household tasks. The moment Hannah said that, I showed my husband and Hannah the photos I had taken of the household chores she had done. Do you still say you were teaching with these? These photos were taken on the day I got back from the hospital. The laundry is all wrinkled, and the floor is so dusty I can't even tell if it was cleaned. An elementary school student could do a better job. I said loudly when showing them the photos, and after that, Hannah had nothing more to say about the household chores. The discussion ended there, and the next day my husband took Hannah back to her home. And so, the life with just Hannah and me came to a close. Since that day, the harassment from Hannah has settled down, and I'm no longer nagged about household chores. But I just couldn't forgive her for throwing ice water on me. 2 months had passed since then, when my husband had to travel again for business. This time it was a domestic trip, not abroad, and it would only last about 2 weeks. 3 days after my husband left for his trip, he called me. Mom's come down with a high fever and isn't feeling well. Could you check on her for me? Reluctantly, I went to visit my in-laws' house, thinking this could be my chance to get back at her for the harassment I had endured. Are you okay, Hannah? Why are you here? Just go back, I'm not feeling well. Hannah answered the door, looking quite ill. I wanted to leave to avoid further annoyance, but I stayed out of obligation to my husband's request and entered the house. After showing me in, Hannah immediately retreated to her bedroom, which was cluttered and had hardly any space to step. I was honestly shocked and disillusioned. To be bedridden over something like this is pathetic, I retorted upon seeing her in that state. I had just thrown back at her the very words she had once said to me. That's right, Hannah. You've got a fever, haven't you? I heard from Raymond. Just keep resting, okay? It was the exact scenario I had faced before. Now was my chance for retribution. Hold on, Emily. I can't move. Could you please do some housework for me? To Hannah's pleading, I responded with a smile. Why would I? If I do it with my terrible housekeeping skills, you'll just have more trouble when you recover, right? After all that criticism you gave me, I think it's best if you handle it. Don't say anything. Just help me out. I can't move. Hannah begged me with those words. If you insist that much, I can't refuse. All right, let's do this. I'll take care of the housework until you're feeling better, but you must promise not to complain. Hannah agreed to my terms, and I began cleaning and doing laundry at my in-laws' house. About an hour in, I heard from Hannah's room, Emily, I'm sorry to trouble you, but could you bring me some ice water and a towel? I want to cool my head. As requested, I brought a bucket full of ice water and a towel to Hannah's bedroom. Here you go. After handing over what she had asked for, I left to clean another room. No more than 5 minutes passed when I heard Hannah's cry from the bedroom, "It's so cold!" What's wrong? I rushed to the bedroom after hearing a commotion, only to find Hannah soaked to the bone. It seemed she had tried to soak a towel in ice water and, getting off the bed, she tripped over clothes scattered all around the room, overturning the bucket in the process. Maybe this will help cool your fever down. I couldn't help but smile at the sight of Hannah. After all the complaints about household chores, her own space was a mess. That's why she ended up doused in ice water because of the scattered clothes. Hannah, you're really something. You complain about others, but can't take care of your own stuff. And now, drenching yourself because of that mess, it's all your own doing, isn't it? I said to this Hannah as she shivered uncontrollably. Emily, can you get me a towel and some clothes to change into? Hannah clearly wasn't in the mood to entertain my comments. I considered leaving her be, just like she did to me, but the thought of possibly having to rush her to the hospital made me relent, so I gave her the towel and clothes as she wished. After she changed and her shivering had eased, I asked with a constant smile, "How does it feel to be drenched in ice water? Do you now understand a bit of what it feels like to have ice water dumped on you when you're sick in bed? That's what you did to me, remember? Next time you pull something on me, I won't be so forgiving, okay?" Later, as I finished up my chores and the day grew dim, Hannah had perked up quite a bit and her fever had significantly subsided. Well, it looks like you're feeling better, Hannah, and I'm done here, so I'll be heading home. I was ready to leave for my own house, seeing that Hannah's fever had gone down. Wait a minute, wasn't the cleaning a bit sloppy? To my surprise, Hannah broke her promise and started complaining about the housework I did. What? You're complaining even after making a promise? That's disappointing. But, you know, I did the chores just like you did, and retorted, showing her the photos I had taken as proof of her own sloppy work. Seeing the photo, Hannah was speechless and fell silent. Ah, that reminds me. I heard from Raymond before that you used to be harassed by your husband's mom. Just because you went through that doesn't give you the right to do the same to me. If you really want to harass someone, first get your household skills up to par with mine. And by the way, I'll be sure to report any harassment to Raymond. Right before leaving, I recalled the old story about Hannah that my husband had told me, and I tossed those sarcastic words her way, then left my in-laws' house. I felt great having gotten my revenge on Hannah. I'll never forget the look of frustration on Hannah's face when she couldn't say anything back. On the way home, the memory of her expression made me want to pump my fists in victory. A week went by, and when my husband returned from his business trip, he thanked me for looking after his mom. "Did she say anything?" I asked. "The usual complaints about your sloppy housework," he replied. I had told my husband about the harassment, and right after that, he had contacted Hannah. That's what she had said. Really? She's still saying that? I couldn't believe she hadn't learned her lesson. "Yeah, so I told her off," my husband laughed. Complaining about others all the time and then blaming Emily because you can't do household chores yourself. If you've got so many complaints, do it all by yourself. We talked more about Hannah and about the revenge I had taken. He was laughing, saying, "After all the bullying you endured, Mom deserved a taste of her own medicine." The next day, Hannah came over, completely subdued, and didn't harass me at all. The day passed peacefully, and when Hannah was leaving, my husband made it clear to her, "Mom, you got what you deserved from Emily, right? If you harass her again, I don't care if you are my mom, I will never forgive you. No matter what happens to you, I won't help you at all." Hannah, who had thought her son was on her side, hung her head and promised, "I understand. I swear I won't do it again," and left. Since then, I've seen Hannah several times, and it seems what my husband said really got through to her. There's been no harassment, and we've been getting along as if nothing ever happened. If Hannah ever harasses me again, I'm ready to give as good as I get.